Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our podcast. I have my friend, my brother Adekunle, a developer, engineer, product manager. What isn't he?
Soccer player, a love of life, and
Entrepreneur,
everything in between.
everything. Great to have you on, my brother. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing fantastic. It's pretty chilly here in Atlanta. Trying to stay as warm as possible, but I'm doing great.
Right. Yeah, I was actually looking forward to this specific podcast because you and I have had several conversations around mentorship, empowering the next generation of developers and giving them a, how do I say, giving them a shoe that they can fit in and giving them a place in the community where they can thrive and grow. So really excited about this conversation, but I know so many people haven't had the conversations you've had. So I'm just going to let you do a little bit of introduce yourself to our audience and share things that I probably didn't share.
That's awesome, Iyanu. As always great talking to you. First of all, Happy New Year 2026. I'm not sure
Yeah,
I
brother.
said that to you, right? I know 2025 just went like this, and now we're in 2026. And guess what? We're already halfway
My God.
into the month. So time really, really does fly. Happy to be here. Yes, I go by Adekunle. Some folks call me Ade, some call me Kunle. And I use this favorite line, don't call me Ade. So you can choose Ade or you can choose Kunle or Adekunle. But please don't call me Ade. Born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria, where I spent, I would say, half of my existence in this world, pretty much in Lagos, Nigeria. Immigrated to the US about 20 years ago. Well, now I call Atlanta home. So I've been here in Atlanta the last 20 years. Prior to Atlanta, or I would say while I was in Atlanta, I got the opportunity to work on what was supposed to be a 2 week or 2 weeks, 2 week program, I should say, ended up being a about almost 3 years, 3+ years program in Denver, Colorado. So I got to live in
Wow.
Denver,
Wow.
for about 3.5 years, which was great. 20 years ago, just living in Denver was, I don't know what it is right now because I haven't been in a very, very long time. But it was just amazing. The outdoor was fantastic, lots of mountains. Obviously it was cold for sure, but culturally too, we had few interesting spots depending on what side of Denver you leave. So yeah, like I said, I'm based in Atlanta. I am an engineer by trade. So I went to school back in Nigeria where I studied, believe it or not, construction, building technology.
What?
Yep, yep, yep. So my undergrad was actually
What?
building houses. So, but I tell myself, hey, I won't build any house that I would probably live in, to be honest with you, because uh, I'm not sure I have those skill sets any longer. I never built any house. I just went to school to study. And that's another story for another day. But ultimately, did my master's in information systems management from the University of Liverpool. And then while I was doing that, I just had passion for, just IT in general. So I picked up my first certification back then was called MCP, Microsoft Certified Professional. And I never looked back. I
Wow.
pretty much did up tons of certifications for Microsoft to Cisco to project management, program management. The list goes on and on and on. And then somewhere along the line, worked for a few big tech companies, including Cisco. And I also worked for Meta, where I've been the last 4 years. But somewhere along the line, I also caught the entrepreneurship bug, which hopefully we will talk about more in details. But that's pretty much a quick story of my.
Wow. Wow. And when people introduce themselves on the show, I get to learn a little bit about them and a little bit about how they actually developed some of the skill sets that they have right now. So when you think about construction, right, like you'd say, well, you might not necessarily be using construction, but if you look at development, it's really construction in a way. And why construction? Was there a passion that led to construction, or was it something that, like my dad wanted me to be a doctor, and so I was gonna test it out, and it didn't quite work out, and I had to pivot. For you, where did that passion, where did that construction idea even come from?
And that's a very interesting topic, and I'll share a little bit with your audience. So for me, when I finished high school, most of my so my siblings, I have two older siblings, and I have a one younger sibling. So the idea back then was you would finish your what we call high school, well, what's called high school here, secondary school back home, and then you would come to the U.S. or the U.K. to go do your college degree or your master's, whatever the case may be. So my elder brother did that. My elder sister did that. So when it got to my turn, apparently I was refused a, my what's it called, student visa,
Is that
because they had said, hey, we had already begun the process of immigrating to the U.S. So I had to wait until that process pulled through. So they kind of just turned down my application. So I went to my dad and I said, "Hey, yes, I know the US is the ultimate goal, right? Since, I have precedence with my elder brother and my young elder sister. But hey, all my peers are already going into college. I can't just wait around until the US, comes calling. I need to go to college and not wait until, my opportunity came. So we started looking. At that point in time, all the great schools, that we know of back in Nigeria were already, taken. So the likes of University of Lagos, University of Ife, those were pretty much the first choice for
Yep,
most people, right?
yep.
Like, so those were gone, right? And not only the schools, but also the major two were also gone too. So computer science, accounting, all of that was
S-
all gone. So I
Wow.
had two choices, right? I could either wait till next year, that means waste an entire 12-month cycle, or I could take what was validly available as at then, and the only thing available then was building technology. Which I said, "Well, I'll do it." My dad said this was his words. He said, "Oh yeah, just go in. You're just gonna be there for 2-3 months. Then you all student visas to the US will pull through." That did not happen. I ended up finishing the entire building technology, 5 years plus, and then along the line I started working until my my immigration visa ultimately pulled through. But yes, that's the backdrop behind why I chose construction. Not because it was my first choice. It was because I had no other choice at that point in time.
Wow, wow. So what would you have chosen if you had the choice?
It would have been computer science, no doubt.
I see.
Because at that point, I was already kind of interested in computers. I had started repairing computers at cyber cafes. So I think for me, that passion of how computers work was already beginning to grow in me. So it would have been something along the lines of either computer engineering, computer science would have been my number one choice for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So what drew you to computers? What particularly about computers sort of got you interested in, like messing around with devices, and where was that from?
It was the money. And I'm just going to be very, very open, right? So again, right. So the idea was, I had one of my neighbors back home say, "Hey, she lived in the US. So she would come back and she would like, just tell us how great the US is and how, you could make good money, you could, do XYZ." And then she mentioned specifically that, those that had computer skill sets, right, had better quality of life. Right. So when she told me that, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So you mean if I go learn about this certification or go learn about this discipline within computer engineering, at least I'll set myself up for a successful career. And I think for me, that was pretty much the first trigger. Right. And then the second trigger became, I met a friend of mine who by then was already deep into computer engineering, repairing computers, putting computers together, building computers, and I just fell in love with it. So I was more of his apprentice. So I would go with him and carry his tool bag. And while he's repairing computers, I just go ahead and give him the necessary tool sets. And that kind of just, made me realize that, okay, you know what? This is actually fun. So initially was the ability to be able to provide a better life for myself now became something I truly started to enjoy when I got deep into it. And then now the rest is history for sure.
Wow. 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 That is incredible. Incredible. So you did building
Technology.
technology in school. I guess the reason why is because it had the word technology in it. Uh, maybe, maybe not. Then from there, I would assume you came for your master's in information
Business management.
systems here, information management here. What was your first intro to computers? Was it project management? Was it writing code? What was your first opportunity in the computer science space?
So that's actually a great question. So really it started, like I said earlier, working in cyber cafes. And for me, when I started repairing computers at cyber cafes, I was kind of fascinated in how computers talk to one another.
Mm,
So that kind of drew me into networking as a discipline. So I started thinking more, not just the software side of things. I started thinking more of networking. How
network.
does computer A talk to computer B?
I
Right.
see.
So my first certification was after my Microsoft, certification because I wanted to understand the operating system. So I did Microsoft MCSE and all that good stuff. And I'm like, okay, great. Now that I have some understanding of what the OS actually looks like, now how do they talk to one another?
Mm,
So I started to think of what certifications are applicable in that realm. And back then there was this thing called CompTIA Network Plus or N Plus. So I did A Plus, which is more focused on, computer repairs and all that good stuff. So I did Network Plus, which was very agnostic to the vendor, was
yeah.
just pure networking technology.
Yeah.
Then I told myself, I said, okay, if I want to do something, I want to do it really, really good. I want to go deep. So I said,
Mhm.
hey, which were the companies that I was kind of fascinated with what they do? And one of them was Cisco. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna go learn this Cisco stuff. I'm gonna do certification. So I started, learning CCNA. I did the certification. Then I learned CCNP, which is Cisco Certified Network Professional. I did the certification. And then I was just in my first, I think either my first year in college or my second year in college. And literally with the skill set I had gained, even though I did not really have the practical experience, but in theory I was great. In practical, I sucked. So what I did was I was fortunate enough to get a freelance work actually teaching Cisco networking to a training school that used to send professionals actually from the banking industry. So even though they were working with the actual physical
Wow.
equipment, for some reason they trusted this, I don't know, 19-year-old or 20-year-old to actually come in while I was still in my first year or second year in college to come to their facility and actually take them and do training. So which for me was great because it allowed me not only to make money because I was in college, as a young college student, I needed money for XYZ, but I think ultimately it started to pique my interest in just working with people, working with professionals. And that was my sojourn, frankly, into IT.
Wow. So would you say you're more of a networking guy or more of a software guy?
Networking for sure. I couldn't code even if it was to go save my life. Now we have vibe coding and all that good stuff, so which is great. But yes, I think for me, started off as a network engineer, kind of worked my way to pretty much the highest height when it comes to networking. And then from there on, kind of started, you know, understanding what entrepreneurship and startup actually looks like. And that became my next love. And we can talk about that too.
Fantastic. So the idea that you can have two systems communicate with one another is incredible. The idea that you can have systems in different locations talking to one another is absolutely incredible. The idea that you can have nations communicating with one another using systems is game changing. Now, if you would, because there are people that are watching this and they're saying, hey, I want to start my career in this specific space. So we've had developers come have a conversation. I want to start my career in networking And basically, there's this AI thing that is coming into the picture now. Is there a place for me within the technology, spectrum, or should I be worried? Can you share a little bit?
No, that's actually very, very valid. I mean, when we were growing up, we didn't have as much opportunity, I would say, compared to what we have in today's world, to be honest with you.
Mhm,
Yes,
mhm,
we've had different we haven't pilot conversation as to what AI means and what AI does not mean, right? Some are scared that AI is going to come and take your job.
um,
Yes, it will come and take your job for sure. But guess what? There'll be other opportunities that would arise that we can actually leverage. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I said, "Do you realize, like, many, many years ago, not so many years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, we had no concept of a YouTuber or an influencer, right?
mhm,
Like,
mhm,
if someone had told you that, oh, what you're doing right now, or a podcaster, right? There was nothing like that. Maybe it had a
right.
different meaning, but it wasn't termed
Wasn't,
what it
yep,
is right now, right?
yep.
But now it's a thing and people are making good living out of that. So I think for me, what I'll say is, first of all, understand who you are as an individual, right? Because you can't force something that you are not.
Mhm,
Right. Some of us are great at talking to people. Some of us are not great at talking to people. Some of
mhm,
us are great as, critical analytics. Some of us are not.
mhm,
So sometimes when I'm having conversations with folks, some like, hey, should I go learn to be a product manager or a program manager? And I say, hey, like, before pegging yourself into a specific, a profession, right? First of all, understand who you are as an individual. That's number one. Number two is do an analysis or an audit of the different opportunities out there, right? And look at who you are as an individual. And now the good thing is we have AI that can actually assist you in doing that. Literally, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I told her, I said, she's like, hey, I'm trying to transition from being a business analyst to being a product manager. Right. And I said, and she asked me, what should I do? I said, well, guess what? Put this prompt in either Claude or ChatGPT and say, hey, this is my resume. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I'm trying to do. Conduct a gap analysis for me and then give me a very detailed plan of what I need to do to get from point A to point B. And she came back and said, oh, wow, yes. I see that I have a lot of gaps that I need to address before I can make that leap. And it's like, great. Right. I don't want to just jumping into something because
yep,
everybody wants to be a PM, right? Because
yep,
everybody
yep.
wants to be this or that. So to your question, right? What I tell people is, first of all, you have these tools at your disposal, right?
Mhm,
Learn more about them. There are a whole bunch of tools out there. There's Gemini, there's Claude, there's Meta AI. Just learn everything, and then eventually start getting comfortable with one or two, because it's just too much for you to learn. Get comfortable with one or two. Make it part of your daily workflow,
mhm,
right? And then the same question you're asking me, guess what? Ask those tools.
mhm,
Right? 'Cause I'm just one tiny body of knowledge.
mhm,
That tool is like me multiplied by a billion more because he has
mhm,
all this huge repository of data that he
mhm,
can leverage from that I don't have, right?
mhm.
So once you do that, then you can now bring it back to me and I can then provide other context that maybe that tool might not have given you. And hopefully that creates a career progression path for you. And I think that I've seen that work well with
I see.
people that I have conversations with.
I see. I see. So you think that for someone who is going into networking, AI is not going to take their jobs?
No, I think AI would enable them to do more.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I don't think, I don't think it actually depends on what kind of networking, right? Because when I started, right, it was more of, we would not only design, the network. I think AI would do a fantastic job now designing networks
Yep.
compared to what I designed in the past. But, we also have to, install the infrastructure.
Mhm.
There's no way AI is gonna
There's no
install
way. Yeah.
you're not
Exactly.
gonna unless you start having, robots, put in routers, switches,
Yeah. Yeah.
shelf and all that. That's still gonna be done manually in the
Exactly.
unforeseeable future. So AI is not gonna displace that, right? But what
Exactly.
AI would displace is what we used to do manually when it comes to configuration of those devices was very, very manual. We have what we call command line interface, CLI. We would type in command T, we would type in this, interface that, put in an IP address. Now with automation, you can literally provision a router, a switch, or whatever the case may be in as few seconds or a minute. So I think AI would enable that.
Got it.
I don't
Got
think it's going to replace that.
Got it. Got it. Got it. That makes a whole lot of sense. And so, how do you think people? What do you think people? You've given them one suggestion, which is use Claude, use GPT to start sort of getting to see, okay, what are the gaps in learning, and how do you improve it? For someone who is just starting, though, for someone who is just starting, where should they really be starting from?
That's a good question. So if you're just starting, and I'm guessing when you say starting, just out of high school,
Out of college,
out of
like
college.
literally out of college.
So funny enough, though, I would say if you're starting out of college, then you probably started too late, right? Because again, look at it this way, right? Gone are those days where it was very, very linear, right? You go to college, you start as a freshman, you finish, and now you go look for a job. Now, I think really from your first year in college, from your second year in college, you need to start having some idea directionally. You might not have
Very
clarity
true.
yet. Directionally, you won't understand what you want to do. So
Very
again,
true.
saying, "Hey, I've just finished college. Where am I starting from?" Like a little bit too late, but it's not the end of the world, right? So for me, I like to back it up. That's why I said, is it after high school, right? Is it like first year in college? But let's
You're
assume that
absolutely right, though.
yeah, let's assume that this individual is just like literally out the two scenarios. So let's start with the scenario where I'm just, I'm in college. I've picked a major in college, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, in the next 2, 3 years, 4 years, I'll be done with college. What does
Mm-hmm.
post college look like for me?
Mm-hmm.
Things I would say is number one is start being active, start being very visible,
Yep.
right? Make sure your LinkedIn is up to date.
Yep.
Make sure you have set of mentors that you're following. Make sure you're being upskilling yourself.
Yep.
There are totally a lot of tools out there, like I said, that would enable you to discover who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you've discovered who you are, because again, if you're trying to optimize for money, that can only go as far,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you're trying to optimize for what you truly love to do, then the revenue or the money becomes just a byproduct of what you
Absolutely.
love to do anyways. I
Anyway.
did not have that that leisure or pleasure growing up, right? Because of my specific scenario. But for someone that's just, in high school or just getting out of high school and about getting to college or in college, I would say understand that, listen, it's not, you can't wait until you're out of college. Start looking for intentional mentorship, start looking for startups that literally would hire you, pro bono, just because they need an extra set of hands. And you can obviously, in return, soak in all the wealth of knowledge that it will
Mm-hmm.
provide to you. Right. So start thinking about that first. Now, to your second part of the question is okay, if you're just out of college and trying to figure out what next, right? I would say similar to, folks that are just in out of first, second year in college, I would say more focus on um and it also depends on, frankly, it depends on your should I say your current situation,
Mm.
right? Because I hear this a lot too. I hear obviously the job market being very, very crazy right now, right? And people just need something to get by.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you also need to factor that in, right? It's not about, at that point, it's not about what you truly like, but it's about what can actually pay the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's always going to be different nuances to this conversation. Right. But I think if you had like a magic wand, I would probably add towards understanding who you are, understanding where those opportunities are now and what that would look like in the future, and start positioning yourself to be able to capture those opportunities.
That makes a whole lot of sense. So, and you're absolutely right. Like, with me, my first was an internship out of college. So if you can get into an internship while you're in college, then do that, because then you start basically getting yourself familiarized with the companies, what they're hiring for, what they do, what their general interests are. Then you network with people, and to be able to get to it. But then if you're just graduating and your situation is currently different, you might be trying to pay off your school loans, and you might be trying. Now you have a whole lot of obligations attached to the fact that you still want to get a job, and then makes it a little bit of a mess. But it brings me to the conversation about something powerful you're building, and that's Fostr. And one of the things that you're doing, one is really helping people find mentorship while if they want to get into these spaces. Two, also help build people while they are at their jobs to become who they've been called to be. Can you share a little bit about that?
No, I think that's a good segue because I think one thing I wanted to add to the conversation earlier was the power of community.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you cannot overemphasize the importance of being in a community of like minds. I
Mm-hmm.
think if you go back to many years ago, community has always been the fabric of our nation, right?
Society.
Starting from, I remember back home where everyone in my block was more like they were more like my parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And the kids are like brothers and sisters, you know?
yes, and our neighbors were like brothers and sisters. So
Yep.
I think for me, understanding, which community align best to your passion, your interest, your skill set, and when you see yourself being, I think that's very, very important for sure. So I think that's one thing I wanted to add to the earlier segment where, as you're thinking of, okay, what next for me, start identifying those communities where you can begin to show up and not just, and I say this always, right? Not just what you can get, but what you can give.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because more than often, and frankly, if 2025 taught me anything, is the fact that, those that benefit the most are those that show up constantly without any expectation of anything in return,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And I also tell people, right, don't wait until you need something before you pour into something,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I see this almost all the time, and it breaks my heart, right? People only come at the time of need.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and when I say give back, we're not saying give back money. We're not saying give back. Giving back could be as simple as, liking someone's post.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as simple as resharing someone's post. It could be
Mm-hmm.
as, easy as sharing or reaching out and sending a DM and say, "Hey, happy Monday. Just want to wish you the very best this week." It costs
Mm-hmm.
literally in some cases nothing,
Mm-hmm.
but the effect is super, super powerful.
Big.
So powerful so that when you do need something, because trust me, we all need something in every given shape or at some point we will need something, that visibility is already there.
Exactly.
And it's not like you're coming to me at a time of need, right? Because I've seen you out there pointing to others, right? It's much easier, for others to point to you. So against that backdrop is what kind of inspired, for me, founding Foster, November of 2024. Which is a community for Africans and allies with big tech and startup experience. For me, the idea was, hey, how can we come together so that we can not only connect, we can also collaborate, but I think most importantly, we can co-create together because I believe that most of us don't do that. We work in our individual silos, and we do not really come together as a community. And that's what we're trying to build with Foster. And it's just amazing just seeing just super talented people coming together to point to one another.
That is really, really awesome. So what's the structure? Do you meet on Zoom? Do you connect on how do you have a community group
Yes.
text messaging? What
No,
does
that's great. When we founded Foster, we realized that our core audience use WhatsApp a lot compared to other tools out there. So we use the WhatsApp community feature, and that's the way we're structured. As of last week, I think we're over 820 of us across,
Thankful.
yeah, across, I would say, more specifically 35 big tech companies with roots in over 30 or so African and Caribbean and countries. We have local chapters such as Atlanta, where I'm based, California, Seattle, Austin, Dallas, just to mention a few. And then, I think now we meet every last Saturday of the month. We call it Foster Hangout, which is our global meet. where all of us meet together. And then in select cities, we have what we call Foster Social, where we actually meet in person, over, a nice meal, nice brunch, or activities that we can at least know one another, break bread with one another before we can think of creating with one another.
Fantastic. So the global meet is on Zoom, right?
Correct.
Okay. So for everyone who is watching this show, we would have the link to the connect on the in the description channel. That way you're able to connect if you want to participate in what Fostr is doing. But that's incredible what you're doing with the Fostr community. I think it's really important that people, like most of the time, especially in technology, we tend to be very isolated. And so we're doing everything by ourselves. We're staring at our computers. We're working on code. We're doing networking. We're just so focused on what it is that we're doing. Many times we don't connect, relate with one another. And then for those who are just coming in, they're also introverted, so they don't get to connect with other people as well. So you're typically stuck on your screen, hitting that apply button on LinkedIn, whereas what you should really be doing is connecting with people in your environment so that they can actually help guide you into whatever it is that you're trying to do, or if you have obstacles, be able to help drive you. And there's this whole thing that says your network is your net worth. I think it's even much bigger than
Yep.
bigger than that. I think your network can have a ripple effect on your net worth, so your network can compound over time. And so I was talking to someone on Saturday, and the person was saying how they had accidentally met someone,
Mm,
and that accidental meeting resulted into them getting a job at GoDaddy,
that's awesome.
right? I was watching one of Ian's interview, Ian Aboyeji, the guy that built Andela, Flutterwave, and Move alongside with the teams that worked on it. And he was saying how he accidentally met someone in Canada,
Mm,
introduced him to tech, and if that meeting hadn't happened, and as a matter of fact, he basically said he accommodated that person because they didn't have any place to stay.
mm,
And then they had to reconnect after a few months. That's when he started sharing his experience about tech and Silicon Valley and what he learned there. If that meeting hadn't happened, he might still be working in United Nations or pursuing his law degree. But you can imagine what that meeting did to shift generations. And so your network is not just your net worth, your network compounds. And so, if you position yourself in the right place with the right set of people, you can imagine what's going to happen. But also for the community itself, also it's such a, magnetic effect, if you will, where you to grow the next generation of, startups and next generation of all manner of things. And so that's exciting what you're doing
You
with the
know,
community.
what I also find interesting too, that we have different people obviously bring different voices and different passion. We have those that are very passionate about entrepreneurship and startup, and we have those that are very passionate about, 9 to 5 work, workplace
Jobs.
insights, job referrals, the list goes on and on. And we try to create spaces to accommodate parallel conversation. Recently, I started noticing a pattern within the group where, people just randomly would put out either a Zoom link or a Google Meet link and saying, "Hey, I'm day working today if anybody wants to join me." Right. And the idea was just that, hey, I'm going to be working between 2 to 4. This is the link virtually. If you want to join, just join. And I've actually joined at least 2 or 3 of those in the last 2, 3 months. And it's just been interesting where I come in, you know, the individuals are just working on their own. And then we would have some chit chat conversation in between and then heads down, keep working. And then we'll say hi, hi again, and we're out of it. But the idea was now you're not just isolated, just working all by yourself or in coffee shops, but now you have this network of people that you can actually leverage and bounce ideas out of. And I find that really, really interesting for sure.
That is incredible. So tell me, what do you see as the future of Fostr? Because one of the things I really wanted to drive even in our conversation is the power of community. Literally, this is the topic of this podcast is, being able to drive growth with community. Yes, from a AI perspective, from a tech perspective, that kind of thing. So if you think about the future of Foster, where do you see Foster going? Like, what's your big vision for Foster?
That's I get asked that a lot lately, and honestly, when we started, the idea was, hey, we just saw this what we called a silo that we wanted to help address, and now when we look at just 13 months in and how we've grown, we kind of see ourselves as, you know what, we can actually build a talent engine
Mm-hmm.
and become this trusted group of professionals that can be deployed, either back to the continent. And, remember back in the days, all we were known for, especially folks in the diaspora, all we're known for was just people that remitted money back home, right? So we're like, okay, why don't we stop? Maybe not stop that, but in addition to that, let us be known for not just money remittance, but also knowledge remittance too.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Right, because most of us, we've been opportune to work with, amazing companies. We've been opportune to touch products that affect billions of lives.
Mm-hmm.
So why not take what we've learned and see how we can make the continent of Africa, as great as it can be. So for me, if you say, hey, what do I see Foster in the next 5 years? I see Foster as that trusted talent engine that can help contribute to the success story of what we call Africa.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So we spoke about your career and how you came into technology. Then, of course, about your passion for community and the ability to help empower people with the skill sets that we've learned from a networking perspective or from a coding perspective, and use that within the context of a community to grow the community. What are some of the things that and I know we've basically highlighted some of these things in our conversation, but I want to clean it up so that we can start wrapping up the conversation so people can actually get some meat out of this. Is what are some of the immediate things that you think people should do when they connect with their community? Now, most of the time we always say join a community, right? And you're probably used to this in Atlanta because Atlanta is very, very popular. I don't want to say notorious,
Notoriously popular.
notoriously popular for this, where like you can get into a group and you can feel so left out at the same time from the group. And so, like, what are some of the ways that you recommend people plug in into community, not just Foster, but just in general? Like, what are some of the things that, like, yes, okay, I joined this community, and so what? What do I do? How do I connect?
Yeah, I think that's a very beautiful question, right? I think you shouldn't join all communities, right?
It is up for you. Yep.
Correct. And not all communities are for you. I think let's start with that. I think there should be some intentionality in what communities we join and for what reasons we're joining those communities.
Very true.
Right. So I tell people, yeah, Foster is not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think it starts with that. I think you need to understand, okay, community A does, ABC. That's the reason why I want to join. So yeah, at least have some understanding as to why you're joining. So now
Right.
assume that, yes, you've kind of done your homework and decided this community is for you. The first thing I tell people is that, first of all, start by introducing yourself. Right. And that's something we always encourage
Very.
everybody that joins Foster to
Yep.
do. We actually provide standard script that
Yeah.
makes it much easier.
That's
Say, hey,
Yep.
I am this, I'm based out of this, and this is my background. Love to connect. And we tell people to drop in their LinkedIn. That way they can immediately start connecting with others too. So I think that's number one.
Mhm.
Is before you start asking, right? But just take some time to just to get a feel for the community. Right. And in fact, I would say even in your intro, you can go as far as saying, this is what I can help with. I found that to be very, very powerful, where people join, not only introduce themselves, but they also offer areas in which they can help. It's just tremendously impactful. So it could be like, hey, I go by Ade, I can help out with, mock interviews for anyone that needs help. Boom, that's it. Right. So you're joining, you're already showing your value.
Mm,
And trust me, people, especially in
mm,
today's world right here, they need that. And you'd be surprised people will then reach out to you, and hopefully you can actually create time to be able to fulfill that. Once you do that, become an active voice in the
very,
community too, right?
very
And like I
true.
say, when I say active voice, it doesn't mean that you're responding to every message.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you're liking every message. It doesn't mean you're spending 6 hours a day, in the community group chat or whatever. It just
Mm,
means that be intentional. You can say, you know what, every other day, I'm going to
mm,
jump in for 10 minutes. I'm going to
mm.
see what's going on. I'm going to participate. I'm going to jet out.
Yep.
It could be as intentional as that, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then you can dial it up or down depending on life and everything else going on
I see.
in your life. That's number two. And then number three is, should you then, or when you do then need help, people already know you, right? In fact, they would like, oh no, Iyanu has done XYZ for me. Now she needs help, he needs help, and they will definitely come to you. At least it's worked for me. When on occasions when I really need help from people, it's much easier to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, could you help with this?" And
Mm,
hopefully, because I've poured into others too, it's
mhm.
others are more inclined to do the same thing. So if I try to blueprint of what joining community looks like, engaging in community, and getting the most out of community, that's what that would look like.
That is incredible. That is incredible. So, guys, listen up. Don't just join a community for joining. Do your research. Be very, very, very calculated on why you're actually engaging in the community. Once you do that, then introduce yourself. And don't just introduce yourself. How would you add value to the community? Because once you go an extra mile and people see that, everybody wants to engage with you, everybody wants to connect with you. I realize that most of the time, people just take advice blindly, and they don't run the advice through the lenses of what their vision and purpose is. But if you precede that with what you're trying to do, the rest is going to be history. Thank you so much for joining, my brother. If there are any last words that you want to share with our audience around community, and you can also mix it with community as far as the AI piece is concerned. I mean, it wouldn't really matter. Community is community. Whether you're looking into AI, whether you're looking into networking, whether you're looking into development. Any last words, last powerful words around community for the audience? I know what I would like for people to walk out of here doing is to say, hey, you know, I'm not going to do this life by myself. I have this big vision and dreams and goals. And I've been struggling to do it, and it has not taken me anywhere. And every year I have to, keep circling goal. I want to hit those this year. What's your suggestion to the people who are listening?
That's actually very, very valid. I had somebody that reached out to you many months ago, and I kind of felt they were more mission aligned to join Fostr as a community. And our response specifically was, I don't have the bandwidth now. And I actually respect that, even though it sounded a bit, but when you take a step back and realize that, I'm like, that's exactly what I would have said. Right. Because you remember earlier I said, just don't join community because I say you should, or but because somebody said you should.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that it aligns with what you look to gain out of it and
Mm-hmm.
what you look to provide to it.
Mm-hmm.
So in hindsight, when it was said to me, it did not sink well initially, but then when you step away and realize that, yes, that's exactly what I would have said, you know,
Yep.
I kind of gave it more thought and say, yes, this is exactly what I would hope people would take out of that conversation. So I would say, first of all, understand where you are in life and what you're hoping to get out of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that sometimes if you're not 100%, there's no way you can give 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So sometimes you have to, you know, address yourself first, deal with whatever is going on in your life, whatever circumstances. But also within that lens, right? Sometimes you don't have to go do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I tell people to balance. Yes, you might feel, oh no, there's so much craziness going on in my life right now. I don't think I need to add community into it. But guess what? Maybe community is actually what you need that can actually help you. Again, you have to be able to know the right balance.
Mm.
Right. So I tell anybody out there, depending on where you are, what you're trying to transition into, again, identify the right community for you. Again, first of all, before you take out of the well, offer to pour into that well. And then you would find that taking out of the well just comes naturally because people just want to help you because you've actually provided value to them. If your audience, if there's one thing I want your audience to take away from the conversation, would be that. Like, I've seen way too many self individuals in the last 12 months. And again, I'm being brutally honest, but I think those that have made more lasting impact to me personally have been those that have always prioritized, pretty much everyone, including themselves. It's not like, "Oh, I'm going to prioritize others and prioritize myself differently." No, there's this bucket of prioritization where you can still prioritize you while still showing up for others, however you can do that.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so, so much for joining us for our podcast. We're super excited to have you on. We definitely would keep tabs with you as Foster continues to grow. Of course, we're doing some work with you as worker on the back end just to see how you can actually also help us empower our younger folks, and looking forward to the amazing year that this 2026 will present us, and looking forward to doing some work with you as well.
Awesome. Iyanu, thank you so much. It's been great conversation. I just looked at the time like, oh wow, it's over an hour now. It's just amazing how time flies. But again, I'm always open. Folks can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's my full
Yep.
name. Always happy to connect. Always happy to spend some time, learning more about what makes others tick and hopefully be able to pour into others too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, guys, we're going to drop the LinkedIn so you can connect with Mr. Adekunle. We're going to drop the WhatsApp group if you want to join Fostr so that you can actually also be a part of the Fostr group. Thanks so much.
Bye,
Awesome.
sir. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.